Hello all, welcome to today's session. So we all know that a war has been cooking in the Middle East. The three major participants, Iran, Israel and the United States of America, and the war is also being subsequently spread into the other countries in Middle East. Now already Ganesh Academy side we have seen 2 lectures on how the war is going, the ongoing conditions of So what is going to be on today's lecture? We are going to take a historical stand. There is one very famous quotation which says that history always repeats itself. International relations ஒரு ஈவெண்ட் எடுத்துக்கிட்டோம் அப்படின்னா அந்த ஈவெண்ட் ஜஸ்ட் அந்த ஸ்பாட்ல மட்டும் நடக்கிற ஒரு விஷயம் கிடையாது. அதுக்கு பின்னாடி ஒரு மிக முக்கியமான நிறைய ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கல் ரீசன்ஸ் அன்ஃபோல்ட் ஆயிருக்கும். ஸோ அன்லெஸ் அண்ட் அன்டில் அந்த ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கல் ஈவெண்ட்ஸை நம்ம கொஞ்சம் கோரிலேட் பண்ணி வர வரைக்கும் இப்போ நடக்கிற சப்சிக்வெண்டான இன்சிடென்ட்ஸை பத்தி புரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்கு நமக்கு கொஞ்சம் சிக்கல் இருக்கும். ஸோ அந்த சிக்கலை எப்படி தீர்க்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிறத பார்த்து தான் இந்த லெக்சரை நம்ம பார்க்க போறோம். So what are we going to see is a very important topic, that is the formation of Israel, right? So basically this lecture series is going to be divided into 3 parts. That is how the state of Israel was formed in Middle East. Number 2, how did Israel alter the balance of power crisis in Middle East? And number 3, the subsequent formation of Iran and the other events which have unfolded there. So now let's move on for the session today. Israel formation பத்தி தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும் அப்படின்னா one of the very important agreement that we need to understand is this called this Sykes agreement. So what is this Sykes-Picot agreement and what kind of changes it brought into the Middle East அப்படிங்கறத நம்ம புரிஞ்சுக்கணும். See, Middle East is a term which is being used by United States of America to describe the this region, and generally like say country like India we use the term West Asia, right? இந்த நிலப்பரப்புகள்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா west of the Asia from India ல இருக்கிறதுனால we use the term West Asia. But whereas US uses this term Middle East, it has been much used also in the international relations area. So now let's move on to this Sykes-Picot agreement, and prior moving to it, I wish to explain 2 very important terms while understanding this entire conflict. So we have seen in the news for a very long period of time, these 2 words, Arabs and Jews, are being constantly used. So what exactly are these terms? So if you take the term Arabs, this Arabs are a ethno-linguistic group of people who follow this Arabian culture, language, linguistic and all these things, right? See, ஒரு regionல இருக்கிற ஒரு இனக்குழுக்கள் நம்ம எடுத்துக்கலாம். Which region to an extent it covers? It also covers the areas of Africa and as well certain parts of this West Asia, right? Arabs நம்ம பார்க்கும்போது a very important thing is Arabs are not necessarily to be Muslims. There are other religious groups also in Arabs, which also includes your Christians and other smaller sects and groups are there. Jews are a set of people who follow this Judaism, right? Say for example, it existed even prior to the Christianity, and that's a continuity. We all know that story, right? So they follow this Judaism, and they were believed to be the people who are inhabiting the areas in and around Jerusalem and the current day Israel where it is there. And then in the history, the year 2nd century, these people, because of certain form of oppression from the Roman Empire, they were forced to migrate to the various parts of this globe. That's a very short history, very short textbook history to understand and to know who exactly are this Jewish community. But see, we have to understand Jewish community in a very modern perspective. Say, if I have to explain how these Jewish communities were in the time of 1900s or even today, the population of Jewish community is much lesser, but however, they are a very powerful community. Take for example, even if you take the United States of America today, they have occupied one of the most important positions in, say, decision making and administration, academics, right? Particularly if you take the university education of United States of America, these Jews occupy a very important position, and they also determine what kind of academics that the globe has to learn, right? Apart from there, they were also very predominantly available in the Europe, so they are a small community, but however, they remain to be a very powerful community in terms of the influence that they exert across this globe. So in the basic understanding, so what is the Sykes-Picot agreement? This was signed in the year 1916. It is not an agreement to be signed. It's a little bit of secret agreement which was agreed between United Kingdom and France. So in the year 1916, we all know that it was a time when the World War was happening, and say this, both the powers knew that they are going to win this war in the subsequent time. And what are we going to do with the colonies which is existing in this region? How are we going to separate அப்படிங்கிறதுதான் இந்த பேச்சுவார்த்தையோட ஒரு சாராம்சம். It was a secret agreement. இந்த ரெண்டு நாடுகளும் வேர்ல்டு வார் அப்போ ஒரு புரிதலுக்கு வந்தாங்க. ரைட், ஏன்னா ஒட்டோமன் எம்பையர் வந்து டிஃபீட் ஆக போகுதுங்கிறது தெரிஞ்சிருச்சு. ஸோ அண்ட் திஸ் ரீஜன் இதோட சிக்னிஃபிகன்ஸ் என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா, இட் வாஸ் அ ஹைலி ஆயில் ரிச் ரீஜியன். ஸோ இந்த ரீஜியன்ல நம்ம இங்க இருக்கிற கண்ட்ரீஸ்ல என்ன மாதிரி பங்கு போடலாம் அப்படிங்கிறத ஒரு அக்ரிமெண்டா தான் இந்த சைக்கஸ்-பிகாஸ் அக்ரிமெண்ட்ங்கிறது. ஸோ பேசிக்கலி இட் வாஸ் சைன்ட் பிட்வீன் த டூ டிப்ளமேட்ஸ் ஆஃப் பிரான்ஸ் அண்ட் பிரிட்டன், ரைட், மார்க் சைக்கஸ் அண்ட் ஜார்ஜஸ் பிகாஸ். ஸோ பேசிக்கலி என்ன அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா, பிரான்ஸ்க்கு சில டெரிட்டரிஸும் பிரிட்டனுக்கு சில territories was equally divided. So what France got during this time was your modern day Syria and Lebanon, and what your Britain was allocated was, say, the modern days of Jordan, southern Iraq, and some parts including this Afia and Acre. So these are the parts today, say, they are in and around the areas of Israel, and this southern Iraq and Jordan, we all know, which is located in the West Asian region. One of the very interesting point to be noted here is what is going to be the condition of Palestine. See, one thing that we are supposed to understand here is that still we do not have the term called Israel, because Israel as a country has not at all been established, and that region is only called Palestine, where there are a group of Arabs who are existing there. Interestingly, this agreement said that Palestine needs to be an international administration because of various religious faiths which is existing there. இந்த காரணத்தை நம்ம நெக்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைட்ல பார்ப்போம். ஏன் இந்த ஒரு இன்டர்நேஷனல் ரீஜனா அவங்க வைக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிறத சே திஸ் பிரிட்டன் as well as France was deciding. ரைட், ஸோ இந்த இஸ்ரேல் எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ்மெண்ட் ஆஃப் இஸ்ரேல்ல ரொம்ப முக்கியமான அக்ரிமெண்டா அந்த சைக்கஸ்-பிகாஸ் அக்ரிமெண்ட் இருக்கு. நெக்ஸ்ட் we come to this Balfour Declaration. So Balfour Declaration is also one of the very important declaration that needs to be known. So what exactly is this Balfour Declaration அப்படின்னா, so basically the British government expressed a certain form of willingness to a British Jewish community. அதுதான் நம்ம Balfour Declaration அப்படிங்கறத பார்க்கணும். So what did this British government declare to the Jewish community அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோம்னா, it was that His Majesty's government with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Right. So in the last slide I said that why was this Palestine needs to be an international place with international recognition அப்படிங்கிறது புரிஞ்சுதா? So basically this Britishers wanted the Jewish community to establish their state there, but however in the standla Britishers were very vague, right? So இந்த மைக்ரேஷனை பத்தி நம்ம சப்சிக்வெண்ட் டைம்ல பார்ப்போம். ஸோ பிரிட்டிஷர்ஸ் ஒரு மென்டாலிட்டி இருக்கு. அவங்க என்ன நினைக்கிறாங்க அப்படின்னா, சேம் டு திஸ் பிளேஸ் திஸ் Jewish community will come and then they are gonna settle there. So now let's give us a certain form of assurance to that. அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு assurance தான் இந்த Balfour Declaration, right? So why did British take such a viewpoint? See, as I already said that this Jewish being a very important community in the United States of America, not only in the United States of America, across Europe. So in order to lobby these governments, Britishers are taking such a pro-Jewish stand in this issue, right? And not only that, also to take in charge of this Suez Canal, Britishers wanted to take a pro-Jewish stand in the entire issue, and that is the reason why such a declaration was taken into picture. So now let's move on to the next very important mandate, which is very, very primary in understanding the establishment of Israel over the Middle Eastern region. That is called the British Mandate from 1920 to 1940. Basically, this is nothing but a mandate that was given by the then League of Nations, right? So once the World War got over and the issue of this entire Arab territory went to the League of Nations, the League of Nations gave a mandate telling that these regions, like say as declared earlier, Syria belonging to France, and regions such as Jordan as well as Palestine will be governed by the British crown. So now to an extent we can understand how this Middle Eastern territories was divided between the France and the Britain powers, the then colonial powers, who had colonial ambitions because of the fact that this region was a highly oil rich region. So இந்த அடிப்படை தகவல் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியமாக இருக்கு. Now we'll next move on to the next slide. As I already said earlier, this Jewish people wanted to have a nation in and around this Mount Zion area. Right? So where is this Mount Zion area? It is located in Jerusalem, right? And it is believed that it was a place which their religious text has given them to settle. So as I already said that, say in the 2nd century, when this community was made to move away from this area because of the intervention of the Roman Empire, they were being scattered across the entire globe. So now what this community is trying to do is that now they have decided that now it's time for us to settle in that area. So, but how is that settling going to happen? Because of the fact we already know that that region is being inhabited by the local Arab population. The first Zionist Congress was established in the year 1897 by a very popular person called as Theodor Herzl, being the first president. Right. So they are taking a certain form of declaration in that Congress. So what is the declaration is that to create for the Jewish people a home in Palestine secured by public law. Right. So இப்போ ஓரளவுக்கு நமக்கு இந்த picture clear ஆகுது. So they want to settle themselves in the territory in and around this Jerusalem and have a nation separately for them. Right. So this was a declaration which happened during that time. So அந்த declaration முடிவு பண்ணிட்டு இந்த migration எப்படி இருக்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு விவாதம் வரும்போது what they are trying to do is that, see, as I already said, this community being economically very rich, they are slowly first coming there, buying the lands, and then bringing in the subsequent people and establishing their territories in and around this Arab region. But however, this had a very firm resistance from the local Arab population. How is it possible for this Arab population to accommodate people who are coming away from far distance territories? 1896 to 1920, this migration also had a very, very firm resistance from the local Arab population, and this issue was taken to the Britishers by the Arabs because they were very, very unhappy in this process. What Britishers did was, it was a little, interesting thing. So we already saw that they had something called Balfour Declaration, where they already declared the fact that they were open to have a Jewish settlement in that area because of their own colonial interests. Britishers knew that there was a constant resistance and it was becoming a problem to them. But however, they did not have any form of firm restriction in the movement of this Jewish community. It was, even the restrictions was placed, it was much in papers. Still the migration was slowly happening. So this is what something we need to understand here. So what happened to Palestine in the interwar period? So அந்த நிலப்பரப்பு interwar periodல என்ன மாதிரியான changes நடக்கும்? So what do we understand by interwar period? We are aware of the fact that this interwar period is nothing but the time period between your World War I and World War II. So it's a very important phase in the globe. And I mean, if you are going to study world history, we would be studying some of the very finest issues which happened during this time, and what is the impact that these issues created in the international arena. One such very important thing is so in that time, what was the condition of Palestine? See, as I already said that these Jewish community were slowly coming and settling into this area. They started to economically expand in this region. என்ன பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கிறாங்க அப்படின்னா, இந்த இனக்குழு கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா பில்டிங்ஸ், ஸ்கூல்ஸ், ரோட்ஸ், இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர்னு சொல்லி அந்த ஏரியால எக்ஸ்பேண்ட் ஆகிட்டே இருக்காங்க. இந்த எக்ஸ்பேன்ஷன் வந்து பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா அங்க இருக்கிற லோக்கல் அராப் பாப்புலேஷனோட கான்ஸ்டன்டா ஒரு மோதலுக்கு ஏற்பட்டுக்கிட்டே இருக்கு. வாட் ஹேப்பன் டு த Jewish community during the World War II time? So we are all aware of the fact that this Jewish community underwent a huge Holocaust in the German country, right? So we are aware of the fact that the Hitler who was against this Jewish community underwent a mass killing of these people. So இது என்ன நடக்குது அப்படின்னா international ரிலேஷன்ஸ் அளவுல இந்த ஜூவிஷ் கம்யூனிட்டிக்கு ஒரு சிம்பத்தி வருது. ஏன்னா ஐ மீன் மக்கள் கொத்தாக கொல்லப்படுகிறாங்க இல்லையா. சிம்பத்தி என்ன நடக்குது அப்படின்னா இந்த கம்யூனிட்டி மக்கள் பாலஸ்தீன் ஏரியாவில் செட்டில் ஆகிறதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கு. ஏன்னா யாரும் எந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு எதிர்ப்பும் தெரிவிக்காம இருக்கிறாங்க. So again they start to migrate during that time, called as your second wave of migration, and that wave of migration is a very very huge migration which is happening there. So as I said already, this issue again creates a lot of tensions in the region, and this matter goes to the Britain, and what Britain does is that it was unable to solve this crisis, finally taking this issue to the United Nations, which was established in the year 1940. So we all know that once the World War II was subsequently ended, the United Nations was established in the year 1945, and this issue was taken to the UN for a solution. So this is a very important understanding which needs to be taken into consideration. And even for the UPSC preparation, when we look into the picture, we also have your India's role to be taken into account. So what India did in this process, we will see it now. By the year 1947, we all know that this issue was referred to the United Nations. So what happened is that the United Nations Assembly created this UNSCOP, so United Nations Special Commission on Palestine. So basically there were 11 nations which was selected by this United Nations to bring up a solution to the ongoing problem. So this 11 nations took up certain form of study, they went to the places and then they came up with solution. One thing that we are supposed to know here is that this 11 nations was divided into two sets. See, one set of countries gave a solution, and the other set of country also gave a very different set of solution, because both the groups were varying in their ideas. So one very interesting thing to be noted is that among these 11 neutral nations, even Iran was one among the nations. So one thing that we are supposed to not forget here is that still we have not had your Islamic revolution, which happened around in the year 1979, and there was subsequent regime change and everything. But now the condition of Iran is very very different, because of the fact that we all know that for a long period of time they were under this Shah rule, which was a very pro-Western rule which was extending in that region, right? So now if you try to connect the dots, right, whatever which was being said as of now, and we try to connect the dots, you can try to understand the fact that the balance of power which was existing in Middle East for a very long period of time, it's slowly changing. And after the establishment of Israel, this balance of power is undergoing a significant, and say after the wars, right, the first Arab-Israel war, Yom Kippur war, and then subsequent establishment of PLO, Hamas, and all these things, say after the Islamic revolution in Iran, the balance of power undergoes a significant change in the region. So அதை நம்ம இப்போ கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா correlate பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கும். So what happens is that this committee comes up with certain form of recommendation. So one was the majority report and other was the minority report. Basically what this majority report said is that Palestine region needs to be divided into two parts. One is a region which is dominated by the Arabs, and other region of Palestine which should be dominated by a Jewish state, where there should be a joint economic union. Right? Say for example, like how European Union exists today. Say there are various nations, but however there exists a body called EU, which takes up a lot of decisions regarding this economic issues for the, say, betterment of trade, connectivity and other issues in the region of Europe. So அவங்க என்ன சொல்றாங்க அப்படின்னா, சரி நம்ம ஒரு அரப் பாலஸ்தீன் ரீஜனும் நம்ம ஒன்று எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்ணிடுவோம், ஜூவிஷ் ஸ்டேட்டும் ஒன்று எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்ணிடுவோம். இந்த ரெண்டு நாடுகளுக்கும் ஒரு பொதுவான ஒரு எக்கனாமிக் யூனியன் மாதிரி ஒரு பாடியை கிரியேட் பண்ணிட்டோம்னா இந்த பிரச்சனையை நம்ம சால்வ் பண்ணிடலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் இந்த மெஜாரிட்டி ரிப்போர்ட். பட் ஹவவர் மைனாரிட்டி ரிப்போர்ட் என்ன சொல்றாங்க அப்படின்னா, நோ நம்ம இந்த ஏரியாவை நம்ம டிவைட் பண்ணக்கூடாது, நம்ம ஒரு ஃபெடரல் ஸ்டேட் மாதிரி கொண்டு வந்துடலாம். சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒன் நேஷன், அதுக்குள்ள ஃபெடரேட்டிங் யூனிட்ஸ் இருக்கலாம், ரைட்? அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சிஸ்டத்தை கொண்டு வரலாம். சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இந்தியாவே அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு செட்டப் தானே. we are a big country, and with that we have a lot of federating states which is existing in that place, right? So இந்த மாதிரியான decision ஏன் இந்த group கொண்டு வராங்க அப்படின்னா, because of the fact that we already know India underwent a partition which was very deadly in terms of communal rights and other things. So India was not much in favor of dividing this territory into two different stations or states, and India wanted to take such a decision, and this recommendation was put into voting in the United Nations General Assembly. And what was a subsequent development which happened there was the majority report was voted upon, and this was taken into consideration that the region should be divided as two nations, that is, one the Arab-Palestine and the other the Jewish state, right? But whether this happened, right, what was the issue behind this, அப்படிங்கிறத we will see in the next slide. What was the provisions of that majority report? We'll create a Jewish state which approximately had 56% of the land. Yes, obviously we all understand the fact that UN is a pro-US based organization, also aware of the fact that Israel community exerts a tremendous influence on United States of America, their academia, their decision making, administration, politics, funding of many things is under the lobbyist of this Zionist group. So here also they take a little upper hand in that majority report, where say they take the important fertile coastal plains and the Negev desert. So that was the first idea. And second is this Arab state, which comprises almost 43% of the land masses. And next, what this majority report states that this territory of Jerusalem should not belong to any country, but rather it should be a region, international region, which needs to be administered by the UN. And still now we know that the territory of Jerusalem still has lot of issues between this Palestine and the Israel. This is the very basic idea of the report. How are we going to divide this region between the Arab population and the Jewish population? So now what happened is that this idea has been put to vote, and the majority report is being voted by the United Nations General Assembly. But subsequently, the next set of problem comes in the establishment of the state is that Israel has been able to successfully establish itself as a nation because of the fact that it had a good economic power and strength, because of the fact that their inhabitants, Jews themselves, were very economically powerful. And apart from that, that entire nation was backed by United States of America. So the Israel as a nation was able to establish itself, but however, Palestine as a region was unable to establish themselves because of the fact that the other Arab regions, say for example Egypt, Jordan, and the other regions which are surrounding that space, did not much favor this agreement, because of the fact that these nations were completely against the formation of Israel there, because they did not want the Israel as a nation to exist in this region, and that is the reason why they did not accept to this agreement. Not only they did not accept to this agreement, they also did not support Palestine to be established as a nation. So that is the reason why Palestine was unable to establish itself as a nation. And what happens next is, say by the year May 1947, this Jewish Palestine was successfully established. So that is nothing but your formation of Israel. So this is the first half of the history we have learnt in this session. So in the subsequent lectures, what we'll try to see is that what are the impacts of this Arab-Israeli war, first, second, and then the subsequent creation of PLO and Camp David Accords and all these things. We'll see in the subsequent lecture and try to understand the Iran, Israel, and US war in a very holistic manner. Thank you all.